I'm flipping furniture for profit so that I can fund my dream home. I paid $30 for this set of bedsides, put 5 hours of hands-on work time into refinishing them, and just sold them for $420. Bedside tables remain one of the easiest flips that you can do as a beginner. They don't take a lot of time or resources. The teeny tiniest of hatchbacks could accommodate picking these up, so stick around if you want to see exactly how I did it step by step. I started by removing the handles so that I could give everything a thorough clean down. It's always a good idea to do this because dust and debris likes to hide behind those little handles. If a piece is especially dirty, I will use a degreaser to clean it down. However, in this case, it wasn't that dirty. It was just a little bit dusty. So I'm using some vinegar and water to give everything a thorough wipe over, making sure to get in and underneath the piece. Once everything was completely dry, I used my carbide blade or tungsten carbide scraper to remove as much of the existing finish as I could, really focusing on the rounds of the piece and anywhere that I knew my orbital sander wouldn't be able to get into. I started by sanding with 120 grit sandpaper, followed by 180, and then I moved up to 240 grit sandpaper. I knew I wanted to refinish this set in a lighter tone because it sells so well in my area, but I also wanted to add a little bit of paneling to the sides of each of the nightstands as well. I love a repurposing moment, so for the paneling, I'm actually going to be using a timber Venetian blind. Now, this one I picked up secondhand. It was only $5 at my local recycle center, and I've had this for a few projects now. I calculated how many pieces I would actually need. I bundled up the Venetians, taped it off, and then I clamped it down to my bench so that I could cut them all with my jigsaw. A drop saw would also work fantastic for this. However, if you don't have any of these tools, then just using a traditional miter box and saw will get the job done. The Venetians did have a finish on them, so I went around and sanded just the sides of each of the panels so that I didn't have to actually come back once they were glued on in the spacing to sand them. It just felt like it was easier to do it this way. And then once everything was glued down, I'd be able to just come across with my orbital sander to take the finish off the flat surface. When it came time to actually glue them into place, I found the center of where I was going to be gluing on the actual nightstand. Then I found the center of the first Venetian and worked my way from that center point out. So I'm using a Venetian to space each of the Venetian panels. So you can see there I'm putting it in. It's a vertical Venetian coming up. I glue the next one down into place, hold it there for a little second to make sure that it's firm. I get another Venetian, I put it vertically to space it, and then I continue that process. If you're wondering why I'm working from the center out, it's simply an aesthetic choice. What can happen when you are going from left to right is you can sometimes end up with one sliver of timber that you actually have to cut down, and it's only on one edge. But if you work from the center and you work out, you will end up with two uniform pieces on either end. So you don't end up with one little teeny tiny piece. It may be half of Venetian, but it will be the same on each end. This gives you a better visual of what I'm actually talking about here. You can see the two narrower sections of Venetian on either end of the paneling. If I worked from left to right, I would have ended up with one of those little narrow sections at one end, and that wouldn't look balanced. So working from the center out leaves you with two narrower sections of Venetian at either end, but overall it does look more balanced in the space. I allowed for a little bit of overhang with my measurement, so I'm just using my multi-tool here to neaten everything up, and I'm supporting each of the Venetians as I'm going through to make sure that the vibration wasn't going to pop one of the Venetians off. Once everything was neatened up, I went around with that same 240 grit sandpaper to remove the finish off the Venetians, and just on the sides where I'd had the piece laying down, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any micro scratches there as well. It was then time to remove all of the dust, and I'm using methylated spirits here or denatured alcohol and water, and this not only gets all of the dust off, but it gives you a good indication of what your timber is going to do once it has been sealed. In this case, the timber is pecan, so there's quite a lot of variation between the heart and the sapwood. So you can see the orangey heartwood there, and then the sapwood is actually the lighter beige tone. But not only that, I had the color of the Venetians thrown in there as well. So to balance everything out and get more of a uniform look throughout, I'm actually going to apply a paint wash using these three colors. Paint washing isn't just about making the timber look lighter. You can actually do color correction, and that's what I am doing here. Because there is so much variation, if I was just to put a cool paint wash onto this piece, yes, I would get some neutralizing effect for the warmer heartwood, but where I've got that cleaner blonde sapwood, that lighter timber, it would look overtoned. So in my mix, I have that green base tone to neutralize a little bit of the red orange in the heartwood. I have the beige to keep everything looking light and soft throughout, but I also have a warmer tone in there, and that's so that I can warm up that sapwood a little bit, that really blonde timber, because the heartwood next to the sapwood, there is a lot of variation. So if you can add a little bit of warmth into that, it will look a little bit more uniform throughout. But remembering still that even though I am adding some warm into my paint wash, because I have that cool taupe greeny tone in there as well, it's not going to look too warm throughout. You will just get a really beautiful balancing effect. Now, if this is all sounding a little bit convoluted to you and you want some more information about creating raw timber furniture looks just like this one, then I've created a guide through the link in my bio which will teach you everything that you need to know. I go into paint washing, color theory, how to identify what colors you actually have in the timber, how to mix up a paint wash, how to apply it, and then how to seal for longevity in the end. Within that raw timber furniture flipping guide, I also included a cheat sheet which has all of my custom color combinations for the paint washes that I am using currently. It also has the names of the paints, what ratios I actually mix up the paints in, and I've given examples on different timber types. For this set, I applied 3 coats of paint wash. I sanded in between each of those coats, and as you can see, I'm applying with my spray gun. Now, you don't necessarily need to have a spray gun, but they are a very time efficient way of being able to apply a paint wash. You can use a microfiber cloth though, or you can use a brush. You just need to make sure that you are wiping off the excess and that you are sanding in between each of your coats. To seal the bedsides, I chose Fitty's Supreme Wax Polish in the color Light. This one's a beautiful wax to work with. It's easy to apply and relatively odor-free. Comes in a range of 7 colors and can be buffed out to a high sheen level. But I also love the fact that this one's an environmentally friendly, toluene-free blend. So it's good for you and it's good for the environment. It was then time to decide on some hardware, and I was so indecisive on this set. I had a pewter option, an aged brass option. I had this gold one as well, and a black, and I ended up settling on the black, but offering each of these options as an alternate in my listing. So guys, here's a quick reminder of where we started with this set, and this is where we are now. It's soft, it's not too warm, it's not too cool. You still see the variation of the timber and the grain, but it's subtle. It's not so in your face. I love the added panels. I think it gives an overall modern coastal look, but that might just be me. So as always, I'd love to know what you guys think. Jump in the comments and let me know, is this one a nail or a fail?